got to follow the science and the data, and we have to make decisions based on facts. I'm not going to be bullied into not following the science or not doing what I know to be the right thing.
And then here's what you said this week in response to the idea of a lockdown. Take a listen.
What might seem like a natural thing to do is much more complicated than what the CDC might suggest when you look at the reality here on the ground.
So my view is if you get a vaccine, the vaccines are effective, you're immune. And so act immune. If you tell people the opposite, then why, if it's not effective for them and it's not going to change anything, then what's the point of going through it?
Why does a vaccinated person have to wear a mask?
Okay.
Yes, I would like to see the bill in Congress pass on police reform, but I know that the right wing, the racists, are opposed to it, and I don't know what's going to happen to it, but I know this, we've got to stay in the street.
That is Maxine Waters. Alice Shattuck, act immune.
I'm going to act immune now.
It's a big day for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, technically in 2 weeks I can act immune.
All right. Act immune. You can't be fully liberated yet. I've been fully liberated. I'm on the outside now, Alice. I'm over the wall. Congratulations on your Fauci ouchie today. I did. You had a sticker, didn't you?
They gave me one. I didn't put it on.
Put it on. Okay. Where's your vaccine passport? Are you going to tweet that out?
No.
There are people who I considered friends. These are all lefties who actually, and I don't know, like, I'm heartbroken for them. What's going on?
I just don't like where this camera is.
Oh. Very nice. Very nice, Alice.
Sorry.
I enjoyed that display. You never know what's going to happen when when the romantic love interest steps on a piece of furniture. So I am heartbroken that people who I love and respect and I've known for a long time on Facebook have now
put the profile banner on.
Yes, the vaccinated. I'm officially a really good person. Got my vaccination profile thing, and these are generally people who aren't at risk too. It's like, really? How much do we?
Well, they want you to know that they're doing it for you.
Oh, right. How much do we suck? We can't even have a pandemic without looking like total a-holes. I don't know. I've read a little bit about the 1918 Spanish flu. That was the Spanish flu, right? Mm-hmm. And people still, the blame game was happening then. People blame the Red Sox World Series, or was it the Boston Braves? No, it's the Sox.
Yeah.
World Series for a spreading event as well. So people were jerks, but we didn't have the tools to be obnoxious like we do now instantly without any cost to entry at all.
Right.
You are allowed to now communicate without having to risk anything. You don't have to walk down to the town center and stand on a soapbox anymore. You can just be an unbridled jerk now to thousands of people. Somehow I feel like I'm being hypocritical as I say this. But that is pathetic. And just come on, everybody. You don't have to find the lowest, suckiest point possible and say, that's our goal. Let's do it. Let's all get there. Let's all ruin that and be part of that. My big takeaway from this coronavirus, certainly it's a big humanitarian loss of 500,000 people. Or it'll be 600,000, I assume, by the time we're wrapped up here. In the United States and 3.3 million or whatever it is worldwide. My personal takeaway, other than the catastrophe that it is that it showed us as a particularly disgraceful culture right now. And not one to emulate. This is not, coming together and casting off British rule. This is not the sacrifice to end the horrific slavery. This is not the great moments of the civil rights victories, which were won with real bloodshed and tears. those of us who were in this, who have survived largely, use this to be our worst selves.
Yeah. I mean, thank goodness in World War II, people couldn't post on Facebook about how great a job they were doing with their ration coupons and stuff, because I'm sure it would have been horrific. But it brings out the absolute worst in people.
No way. My grandfather was 4F in World War II, and so he couldn't join the war. Maybe it was his eyesight. I forgot. My brother would know what it was, and he was heartbroken, and so he did 1,000 other things. He was in the fire department, volunteer fire department. He did all sorts of drives for rubber and metal, whatever they were doing.
But I do think social media,
he was on the like the air raid squad where they go. They did 1,000 things, and you're right. You're gonna talk about social media for a minute. In World War II, on June 6, 1944, Dwight Eisenhower talked to the assembled press about the invasion, giving them details, giving them copy. It was remarkable because the press, they believed in the goodness of the West,
right,
and the importance of winning this war and driving back the Nazis. They believe, and so nobody leaked it. The press took, and we were all in it, and that there was certainly a more honorable time at that moment. Now, of course, we think we're the most honorable people in history. We think something very important and noble is going on in the streets as we take to the streets, because how many more times do the police have to murder somebody when the truth about how many more times is right there for you to say. You could learn how many more times, but then that would steal the exuberance from the, frenetic energy and fun that's going on in the streets. And that's no fun. You want to be able to jump around and be performative, and you can't do that if you have the facts, and the facts totally deflate the momentum of the movement. There is not. Yes, we saw the horrific killing of a 13-year-old, and then a couple days ago, and then last week, we saw a guy get shot and killed, a 20-year-old by a cop who thought it was a taser. We saw George Floyd. And we see these others. Considering the number of incursions happening out in the country, constantly, yes, these are about as many as happen in that community. More happen to whites and Hispanics. I'm sorry, that is the fact. It's just it's in no one's it's in no one's benefit to be loud about those. Although maybe this guy Laredo might have been Hispanic, but it's no
Toledo. You mean?
Yeah, Toledo. So. We're dumb and obnoxious. That's what makes this time so terrible.
Right.
And I wrote about this in the Substack today. We're terrible in so many ways. Did we even talk about the mayonnaise thing yet?
No, that happened since our last show.
Something that you found. There's this guy on a Reddit thread angry because Kraft mayonnaise, which is actually a good brand of mayo, I will tell you that.
I thought you were a Hellman's only
I am a Hellman's primarily guy. But that Kraft brand mayo is pretty good fallback. Okay. It's not sugar-based like Miracle Whip, which would absolutely be illegal. No American who loves this country, not one person has both an American flag and a Miracle Whip. And certainly,
you're going to get the emails on that one.
99% of people in Antifa use canes. There's no way.
I don't think they use mayo at all in Antifa. There's a whole thing about the millennials don't really eat mayo.
You poor sods. How pathetic. Yeah, we invented avocado toast. No, you didn't invent anything. We've been messing around with avocados forever and heated up bread, okay?
Why does everyone love to hate millennials so much? Did you see that they're blaming the housing crisis on millennials? Too many millennials. First, the millennials were staying in their parents' basements too long and couldn't buy houses because they were spending all their money on lattes and avocado toast. And then all of a sudden there's a housing shortage and we're blaming it on millennials for buying too many houses. It's all our fault. Everything's our fault.
Well, okay,
we were in our parents' basements, and now we're buying too many houses. We can't win. We're just
because
everybody's favorite villain. I don't know. We're going to be the new boomers that everybody just hates.
You know what I had else when I got out of high school?
Yep.
I had this thing called a recession happening in the country when I graduated from high school. And so jobs were hard to come by during the recession. So what Tom Shattuck had to do when I got to California, without a college education, with barely a high school education, barely. I have a diploma, I think, somewhere. I think I graduated. I was there anyway.
It was before the MCAS requirement, or you probably wouldn't have.
No. Barely. I came out into a recession and had to moved over to California with barely any money because I worked at overnights at Caldor, stocking shelves, unloading a big truck. This is not my, bootstraps story. But I'm saying, then I went to California, moved to California, which was having a recession, and there was no jobs available. And I went to Huntington Avenue in Huntington, California. I went to the right side of the street, and I walked down the street, and I applied to every single business. Pollo Loco, car dealerships, health clubs, ice cream place, every single place I saw. And then I crossed the street, and I made my way up the street and applied to every single place I could. Application. We're not really hiring, but you fill out an application. Not really hiring, fill out an application. I filled out. Of course, I had no work history other than, having worked in a pet shop or something in Winchester. Every place. And I remember listening to Rush Limbaugh on the radio, and he used to say, well, if you can't find a job, keep trying and go to 100 places. The 101st might be the place. And I was like, man, I am going through Southern California here. Eventually, the only thing I could get was my friend was doing what's that called? Where you call up and scare old people and tell them they're gonna die unless they buy the fire extinguisher stuff. Like telemarketing? Yes. Okay. Yes. So we were calling people around the country and saying, reading from a script, saying, hey, you should get Flame Stop because 98% or whatever will die. You're gonna burn alive, Miss Hannigan. So get this. And if she said, oh, well, I'd like to learn more, then you'd hand it off to a closer. He'd finish up and then take her money from her. And I tried that for a few days.
That's the worst job in the world.
Oh, yeah. It's the worst job in the world. Not only that, but the place was full of weasels, totally Southern California weasels. Condescending. They were throwing vitamins around. The guys, like the pit bosses, I'm absolutely, completely sure were coked out of their brains constantly. Throwing around vitamins, this and that. All right, T, come on, guys, let's go. Always like high five. It was really a bro, just horrid. And so I couldn't take it. 2 days into the thing, I was like, I can't do this. I was doing it with a friend of mine who absolutely could do it. He had the personality type. He was German. So anyway, I'm also German. I'm allowed to target the German cells. Okay. But so anyway, eventually we got an apartment in a place called Balboa, California, and I went to Balboa Island, California, and did more and more applications. And I found this market, and I did a reservation. I walked in and I said, you have any positions available? And this guy, Korean guy, who owned the place, said, yes, we just had somebody who works here, no call, no show, because he took a plane because the surf is up in Hawaii, and when all the surfers in California, they all get bat signals when the surf is good, and he went to Kalalua or whatever it is in Hawaii to surf, and so I got a job. I guarantee it was more than 100 applications in. The point of this long speech is that I had plenty of reason to bitch and moan.
I don't think millennials.
Well, hold on. I had plenty else. What is Occupy Wall Street? We were promised entry into the middle class, but look at the 1% has it all. We get to camp here now. Screw you. So this is like that. And that is why I have no time for somebody bitching and moaning. I have college loans. Screw you. I don't want to hear your freaking story.
Hashtag not all millennials.
It is. I don't care what millennials what they are or millennials or whatever. But this idea, this softy approach that, oh my goodness, I also had reasons to be a victim if I wanted to. You know, it's easy to do. No, I just can't find a job. Nobody wants to hire me. I didn't have a college degree of my own doing. You know, and there's no I probably couldn't have gotten in it. But anyway. So I'm sick of their bitching and moaning. Why did I bring this up?
Because
Okay.
I was saying that millennials get blamed for everything.
By the way, I do not have, my friend Keith texted me the other day after our Thursday show, and asked if I had COVID because I was coughing. No, I have a blend of a chest cold and a seasonal allergy thing, and my CPAP machine is blowing mist into my lungs during the night, and so everything is just out of whack. I'm sure it's fatal, but don't worry about it. It's not COVID. So that's why we get to this post. The guy complaining about mayonnaise.
Mm-hmm.
Tell the story.
So, yes. So, Kraft Mayo put up a post saying that...
Kraft Mayo, which in my store that I worked in California, was called Best Foods Mayo. No, so that was Hellman's Best Foods.
Best Food.
Retraction. Sorry, I apologize. Go right ahead.
So, basically, they put up a post saying, like, supposed to be like a viral ad saying, like, do you or a loved one suffer from an irrational fear of mayo, otherwise known as mayophobia? Tell your stories below. And some people did not do well with this post because they felt personally attacked since they are afraid of mayonnaise. Because
this generation has features people who get triggered by condiments,
yeah.
who are animated into having personalities, and they have their feelings hurt by these condiments.
Mm-hmm. So, for example, Brian Brushwood, he has a blue check mark on Twitter. I'm not sure what for. I guess he's a comedian, maybe. Anyway, he was upset by the fact that Kraft Mayo made this joke about mayophobia. And they suggested a 4-month plan to ease into liking mayo. And he apparently has kids that are allergic to eggs, so mayo will kill them. I want to say, first of all, that, we have a kid with food allergies, and food allergies, while food allergy anaphylaxis can be fatal, it is very, very rarely fatal. We have really good treatments for it, and in general, while it's not a fun thing to have, usually people don't die from it, so like the hysteria around dying from it is a little like out of control. But he says, ha ha ha, it's funny because my child almost died after month 1 of their 4-month plan. No, but seriously, F you and F this campaign. You've turned every drive-through purchase into a hostage negotiation, and it's shameful, especially because mayo tastes awful and ruins everything.
It's a hostage negotiation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because mayo could get on his kids' food and kill them.
So you have when you have kids allergic to stuff like we have, you have the choice to be personally offended by those foods, or to just avoid the foods and not take the opportunity to vocalize your pain and anguish to the world.
Right.
I would say that having parents who need to animate themselves and be performative in showing great displays of their own pain is, I would say that kids who have those parents are affected by the kind of behavior in a bad way.
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely, it's performative, and it creates this like crazy pathology around the food and around like the fear of food. And I mean, people have very severe reactions to food, so I'm not trying to downplay that. Right. But like, if you don't like a food product, then don't buy it. If you don't feel comfortable with the way a drive-through restaurant handles mayo products, then don't go to that drive-through restaurant. That's the way to handle this. And, we talked about the Children's Museum thing, and everyone was mad at me because I said, like, I think a lot of food allergy parents won't go, and I don't think it's a smart business move to have a peanut butter restaurant at a children's museum because, it is dangerous for some people, and they're not going to go there because of that. And, I think that that's fine. Like, if people want to make choices not to go to places based on their safety concerns. But freaking out because a brand made an ad for their product and you happen to have a kid who's allergic to it and being angry at them. He also goes on, First off, F you for this campaign on principle alone. You're an effing hyena of bleep bag for even starting this campaign. Shame on whatever 23-year-old pitched it. Shame on whatever 49-year-old approved it. Next up, your product literally kills my children. I understand that sometimes there's a benefit to being edgy. I don't think joking about mayophobia is even an attempt to be edgy. Do you?
No.
Is there
I also
anything
don't
trying
think
to be
a guy
edgy?
who goes around saying shame on you a lot is a really good comedian. I can't see how that could be.
When the consumption of your product will kill my children, I have no sympathy for you. F you and your child-killing product.
So I used to...
I mean, it's not... They're
I have
not
told
making
people this
bombs.
before. You know, when I used to smoke, Alice,
Yeah.
I used to, in my 20s, I would go, all of us would go back to the loading dock of the hotel and smoke back to that. So the smokers hung out.
Yeah.
And I remember people coming to me, and I would, without pause, I would always say this, saying, oh, Tom, you shouldn't have smoked. That's really bad for you. And I said, I would always say, smoking has never killed anybody. And to a person, that kind of person will always say, I have an uncle who died of lung cancer. Like, you have to air that out. You needed to have that emotional moment so bad, so bad, hoping, I can use my uncle's dead thing now. God,
Yeah.
It's so petty. It's so petty.
As though being really close to something emotionally makes you more reasonable about it. But that's a thing that we have in this country, that where we think for some reason that people who are emotionally close to a problem are the people that need to make the decisions about it. We have the same thing about gun violence. Let's ask people who've been shot at how they feel about guns. Well, do we think they're going to be the most unbiased source about it? Really? Let's ask the people who are allergic to mayo. Obviously, they're not advertising to you. So they don't really care what you think of their advertising campaign because you're never going to buy their product in a million years anyway. It's so ridiculous. It's unconscionable. It's unconscionable that they're running an advertising campaign based on shaming people who don't like mayonnaise.
How soft do you have to be?
I mean...
That's why I say, and I am somebody who was reluctant to go to get a secondary education because I was so disgusted with my generation of my class and my contemporaries that I didn't want to be around them anymore, ever. No matter where they went, I didn't want to be there anymore. Now I'm in a position where I keep celebrating how good we were, because the rest of we've become so wretched now that somehow my generation was tolerable and even laudable in ways. Like I told you, my friend Keith, who thinks I have COVID, I told you about in home ec when he punched the kid in the leg.
Yes.
And how that kid cried in front of everybody and put on a huge display of pain and weakness that was so irreversible that he left the school system. He is gone. Keith watches this, by the way.
Okay.
He'll remember that moment. That was, back then, we had enough honor to know that, wow, I was just such a complete and total wailing, crying bee that I now I've dishonored myself so much that it is not even a choice that we can ever come back here.
Now, if that happened, they would attempt to re-educate the whole school district. That was that even when I was a kid. If there was any incident of bullying, there would be conferences and everybody would have to go to assemblies talking about it and stuff.
But that was considered, it was such a crybaby moment. It was considered so dishonorable that even the crybaby himself had enough self-respect to go away.
To disappear
He's
from
actually,
the earth.
and I hope if he's listening, hello, but I hate to use you. I also cried in 5th or 6th grade, but a kid put my arm behind my back and pulled it, and it hurt. Not a great moment, too. That also was damaging. I didn't have to move. I could continue with the class, but I went down some rungs. But oh yeah. So that guy, actually, he's back. I think we're on Facebook friends now.
Oh, God.
He's back, Alice. Mm-hmm. But he went in the desert for 30 years before he's back.
He reemerged.
The last time I saw him was 1986 in Miss Franklin's home ec class, writhing in pain and screaming in tears. That's the self-respect we had back then. That's something you'd do. Okay. So should we start the show?
I guess it's time to start the show.
Yeah, if you're I'd like you to subscribe to my Substack to read this. I am kind of happy with today's post.
Yes.
I'm pleased. I got a nice note from Jerry Callahan about it. This one's a paid post, so if you can subscribe and you want to pay for it, I'm for that. But you can subscribe and not pay for any of them as well. I understand, that I'm not an aggressive subscriber of people
Right.
either. I'm going to try to get better about that. I kind of feel like I owe it morally now to be putting my money where my mouth is a little bit more. Here.
Yeah.
We did it. We've just subscribed to a podcast, but we need to get better. We will too. Okay, so I understand if you guys like, why am I paying to get a freaking newsletter from somebody?
Yeah, and there's also at least one post a week will be free. So you can just subscribe to the free option and get a post a week for free, and that's totally fine also.
So is it Christine? Oh, it's Gretchen Whitmer. Gretchen Whitmer is the governor of Michigan, and she is a great example of somebody without answers. She, of course, was total lockdown, kept everybody stuffed inside. And then, with the exception of her husband, I think at one point.
And her staffers have been going on vacation.
Right. So she doesn't practice what she preaches. That's okay. But this is somebody, you want to talk about leadership in government. This is somebody who does not instill leadership. She was on today with Chuck Todd, and she was, historically, since the beginning of the lockdown, she was very much pro-lockdown, close everything, zip everything up tight. And she made it clear, and you'll hear from this piece of audio, that she only believes the science. But now things have changed in her state, so her lack of leadership is fully on display. So you're going to hear Whitmer. The first piece of audio you hear is her then, and then Chuck Todd talks now, an updated piece of audio.
We've got to follow the science and the data, and we have to make decisions based on facts. I'm not going to be bullied into not following the science or not doing what I know to be the right thing.
And then here's what you said this week in response to the idea of a lockdown. Take a listen.
What might seem like a natural thing to do is much more complicated than what the CDC might suggest when you look at the reality here on the ground.
So what's changed? Is it the fatigue? Is it the blowback you've been getting? Is it all of it?
So cases in Michigan are through the roof.
Yeah, it's like the worst state in the country. Although it might be peaking now a little bit. They just had a bigger spike, though, in cases than they had over the winter.
Right.
So it's been pretty bad there. It looks like it's leveling off a little bit, but it'll continue. They'll continue to have deaths for a while.
But
probably.
she's been begging for more help from the feds. She's been begging for all sorts of stuff.
A lot of things have changed. 15 months ago, we didn't know that this virus could be contained by the simple act of wearing a mask.
Now, that jumps out at me, Alice. Because why does she say 15 months ago? 15 months ago puts us back to what?
Last January.
Or is that December? Because it's April now.
Yeah, so it's a year ago would be April, and then plus 3 more months would be January. 4 minus 3 is 1.
She said 15 months.
Yeah. So 15 is 12 plus 3. So 12 months ago was last April.
Correct.
And then an additional 3 months ago was March, February, January.
Okay. We didn't start fighting this thing until March. So what we knew in January
isn't really relevant.
Right. Is immaterial to what we're talking about here. So it's interesting to me that she starts talking about, 15 months ago, we didn't even know that masks didn't work. Oh, well, okay. Subsequently, masks became a thing, right? And she's been heavy into it in Michigan.
Right.
Since the beginning, it's been a mask place. Mask. Remember?
Yeah. So why hasn't it controlled the spread in Michigan all this time when people have been wearing masks all this time?
Very good question.
Not have PPE at our fingertips.
We did not 15 months ago.
True.
Right.
We also didn't have COVID.
We didn't know what that meant 15 months ago. PPE 15 months ago didn't know anything. Pound per, I don't know. Nobody knew what it meant. This is craziness.
We certainly didn't have the testing or the vaccines. We're now in a much different position. On top of that,
that's not an explanation for anything.
Right.
in the waning months, I have been sued by my legislature. I have lost in a Republican-controlled Supreme Court, and I don't have all of the exact same tools.
Okay, so last year before the virus, we didn't have PPE or the supplies they needed. And the only other thing that shows why all the cases are happening is that the Republicans have been mean to her.
Right. And
Despite
SCOTUS told her that she couldn't do the executive orders, that they were that she went too far with her COVID rules.
those things, we still have some of the strongest mitigation measures in the country.
So now she's dodged responsibility and swiveled now. And
Sorry,
now
not SCOTUS, the Michigan Supreme Court.
she's
I
dodged
misspoke.
responsibility now and is moved to taking credit.
Right.
We have some of the strongest mitigation measures going.
Mask mandates, capacity limitations, working from home. So
What is this victory lap for exactly? The point is that you've got an incredible spike. But to them, it's never about the actual numbers.
Right.
It's about all the things we did. We did the mask mandate, and we did the social distance. We shut it down. We did that. See all the things we did? Since we did all these 6 things, then we did a good job. Good, Gretchen Whitmer.
So we're still doing what we can, but what is really happening on the ground here is we're moving fast to get shots in arms. We got 1 million in 2 weeks, 1 million in just the last 9 days. So we keep breaking our own records. We've got these continued mitigation practices, and I'm working with a smaller set.
Is she answering another question?
Right. Yeah. The question is, what the heck is going on in your state?
Of tools at my disposal, and that's why we really do need and appreciate the additional help that we're getting from the federal government.
To be more clear, the original question was, why did you change from being a hardliner and saying we're not going to move off our original plan to then having a nuanced plan? But she brought in all these other things.
Right.
In reframing the argument, she just showcased her ineptitude. So, and she kept doing it.
We still have very strong measures to keep people safe. Mask mandates, we've got capacity restrictions, we've got work from home. We're imploring people to take a 2-week pause. Don't go to indoor dining.
Is she going to write a book like Cuomo?
I guess
It's remarkable. I'm having posters made. Hey, by the way, I don't like the term Michiganders at all. At all. I think people think they're very cute when they say it. I don't like it at all. She also still has the Fauci pillow behind her when she's saying this. But this is what this is leadership in Michigan. This is what it looks like. Somebody who takes no responsibility for anything, who bobs and weaves when questions about accountability are asked, and only shows back up to take accolades or shower herself with accolades. It is cowardice. This is a shill. This is not a leader. This is bad leadership. The thing that I think proves that she is a bad leader is her attempt to torpedo a good leader. And this is my favorite part of every show that I saw today.
This variant, the B117 variant, is what is growing so quickly here in Michigan. We have the second most of it, then I think right after Florida.
Just out of thin air, let me try to think of she's going to think of another state here. I don't know if she comes up with this one.
Florida, at least that was the last.
I'll start again, so I stepped on it.
This variant, the B117 variant, is what is growing so quickly here in Michigan. We have the second most of it, then I think right after Florida, at least that was the last data that I saw. Michigan and Florida are not next to each other, but this is the time of the year that snowbirds come home from Florida, where people are going on spring break.
There you go. DeSantis did it. How incredible. How incredible. Michigan and Florida aren't anywhere near each other, but the snowbirds are all returning, all virused up, because DeSantis is letting the place be open. Florida did it. That's your leadership. It's Florida. Are there snowbirds, I wonder, in Texas and in California too?
Yeah. Meanwhile, they have more deaths per capita than Michigan, so it's not clear to me how if it's worse in Michigan than Florida, how is Florida causing it in Michigan. You know what I mean? Like, you would expect ground zero for the problem to be where it's the worst, right?
No, this is Snowbird homicide, Alice, and it's
Speaking
happening.
of which, she had some of her staffers posted on social media that they were in Florida recently, too.
That's right. Oh, that's right. They're for a party or something.
This variant, the B117 variant, is what is growing so
She says this. You're going to be a special kind of snake to say this with a straight face.
quickly here in Michigan. We have the second most of it, then I think right after Florida. At least that was the last data that I saw. Michigan and Florida are not next to each other, but this is the time of the year that snowbirds come home from Florida, where people are going on spring break.
There you go. Ron Desantis did it, and the left is happy to. Chuck Todd should have stopped her right there and said, wait a second, are you sure you want to do this? Do you have a comms person here who maybe you want to run this by first? Blaming it on Ron DeSantis is, well, obviously it's shameless, and obviously she's a pathetic human being, and I would not feel comfortable living in a state that incompetent. I mean, we're in a state that's close. Well, actually... maybe I should table that and work on it before I even make any judgments. Actually, Michigan, she's insane. Not all of Michigan politics are insane.
Yeah, here it's the opposite. We have a slightly less insane governor than all the other branches of government. There they have an insane governor, but the other branches are keeping it under control a little bit.
Right, and the governor that everybody hates, that everybody calls, murderer Ron or, Death DeSantis.
Death DeSantis.
Yes. He's actually a competent governor, saying incredibly true and bold things.
So my view is if you get a vaccine, the vaccines are effective. You're immune, and so act immune. If you tell people the opposite, then why? If it's not effective for them and it's not going to change anything, then what's the point of going through it?
Act immune, he says. Act immune. Can you imagine how exhilarating that would be to hear? On a large-scale effort. Meanwhile, you have the moronic POTUS shuffling around Arlington Cemetery with 2 masks on last week.
By himself, with no one else
There's
nearby.
nobody around, which is completely belies the science totally. If there's very little else that you could do to undermine the science more than to stand in an open field alone with a mask on. That is stupid.
Especially after you've been vaccinated.
Yes, after you've been vaccinated. That totally torpedoes any credibility, which is one of the reasons why Dr. Fauci was available again, shocking today, did the rounds again, and one of the reasons why he's with Chuck Todd, and Chuck Todd asks this guy, Dr. Fauci, about the mask mandate.
Why does a vaccinated person have to wear a mask?
Okay, this is...
Okay, get ready for my horse bleed. It's incredible. This guy, immediately, he can't even say, he's so transparently full of it now that he can't, there's no veneer of him trying to be seriously analytical anymore.
Why does a vaccinated person have to wear a mask?
Okay, this is something that as we get more information, it's going to be pulling back that you won't have to, but...
Whoa, what? Wait, so...
As we get more information, what I'm about to say isn't going to be true anymore. So.
Right. And mostly it never was. But I'm going to give you about 58 seconds here of stuff. You can use that stuff to build your case for why we're doing the right thing by staying underground and Ron DeSantis is a murderer.
Currently, the reason is...
Next week, there's not going to be a reason. But this week, the reason
I will have a reason for you next week. Oh, no. Alice, this guy is excited. Because you know what's up on the docket now, COVID-wise, vaccination-wise?
What?
The booster.
I don't believe in the booster.
Whoa. Do you have a white lab coat? Do you make $417,000 a year?
No, but
Guess who believes in the booster, or at least having a prolonged discussion, examination about
Okay,
the
but
booster?
I follow a bunch of doctors and stuff on Twitter.
There's only one doctor.
And
it's this guy right here.
And they believe that the booster thing is like an attempt for Pfizer to rally their shareholders, and that that they think that the immunity data that we're seeing from the current dosing regimen is strong enough that it's unlikely
you poor, sweet
that
naive
we're going to
thing.
need a booster.
So innocent.
And
it's not about what we need. It's about what he needs to get on TV. And if he in the summer, in the fall, needs to talk boosters to get on TV, he will talk boosters, Alice.
I don't think we're going to need
He will
a booster.
talk Star Trek. He will talk pornography if you want. He's getting on TV, and he'll find a reason. The next reason is going to be booster.
I don't believe in the booster.
This is not about medicine, Alice.
That when you get vaccinated, you are clearly diminishing dramatically your risk of getting infected. That's one of the things we've got to make sure everybody understands. You dramatically diminish it.
Now I'm going to torpedo that because I need to prolong my stay in your green room for a few more weeks.
However,
here we go. That's gone now.
what happens is that you might get infected and get
You might. Mm-hmm. You might.
absolutely no symptoms, not know you're infected, and then inadvertently go into a situation with vulnerable people. And if you don't have a mask, you might
A
inadvertently
lot of mites happening here.
infect them. Now, there's a small risk of that.
There's small risk of the mites. We
A
don't know-
really,
right.
really small risk.
Right.
So
And when
first
I say
of
might,
all,
I mean won't.
so really, like the COVID testing positivity rate, like the number of tests that are turning out to be positive when people get tested is like 1 or 2% or whatever. It's low. There's not a lot. So for the most part, and that's probably higher than the incidence of COVID in the general population because the people getting tested are more likely to believe that they might have COVID. So they probably have symptoms or whatever. So for an average asymptomatic person in the population who's not vaccinated, your odds of having COVID are already super, super low, right? Like just the odds that any given random person who's not vaccinated and hasn't had COVID, having COVID if they have no symptoms is already really incredibly low. Now you take that and you reduce it by another 90%, which is by how much we know the vaccine reduces asymptomatic transmission. So the already really tiny odds are reduced another 90%. And now you're talking about, say, for example, like outside, like for a vaccinated person to wear a mask outside on the off chance that they manage to infect somebody outside is so astronomically low. It's like, we're talking about like lightning strike territory here. It's ridiculous. It's certainly more dangerous
that's
to
still
get
being-
in your own car and drive to the store than
the
it is to be
WHO
around a vaccinated person outside with no mask. Inside, maybe inside while there's still some people who are having trouble getting the vaccine, maybe. But at this point, really, like I went today, it was already much quieter there than it was a few weeks ago when I got my first one. Like, I think we're pretty, and you're seeing it in a lot of states that it's much easier to get an appointment now. It's very easy to sign up and get vaccinated. Like we're nearing the point where everybody who's at risk and wants to be vaccinated has had the opportunity now to get vaccinated. We're really almost there. And at that point, like once those people are vaccinated, then there's really no reason whatsoever because that reduces your risk of dying from COVID to like 1 in a million. It's really like, it's so low. So once, pretty much everybody has been vaccinated that wants to be at that point, like, why does everybody have to keep wearing masks to protect people who don't want to get vaccinated? And probably if they don't want to get vaccinated, they probably don't care that much about COVID in the first place, right? So like,
Dr. Fauci doesn't agree with you.
But it's there. The other thing is that there may be variants that are circulating. We know New York
There's a wishy-washy word. There may be.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, might.
area has their own variant, a 526. There's a South African variant. Fortunately for us, Chuck,
This guy is credits and debits.
Mm-hmm.
Throws a credit on the ledger sheet, offsets it with a debit. Credit, debit. Everything he says he offsets with something else.
right.
Because it keeps him there.
the 117 variant that is dominant in Europe and in UK is
Right.
also now dominant in the United States. Thank goodness the vaccine works very well against that variant.
Oh, well then what's the problem?
Right. So why did we mention it at all? It could be. It might. That said, it probably won't. A week. Like you said, the way he started this.
Why does a vaccinated person have to wear a mask?
Okay, this is something that as we get more information, it's going to be pulling back that you won't have to. But
that's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. Is that this? What I'm about to say is no longer operative very shortly.
Yeah, soon I'm going to tell you the opposite of this. So draw your own conclusions.
And it's crazy. So when he got on with Chuck Todd today, this is the first question Fauci got. Remember, this guy gets $417,000 a year. He's the sainted, canonized, the greatest, most knowledgeable antivirus killer, virus slayer ever in history. Listen to him, how he answers Chuck Todd's first question. This is a short question and answer.
Let's start with, obviously, the concerns of a lot of folks, the state of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Do you anticipate we will at least know something more definitive come Friday when the advisory committee meets next?
Okay, J&J vaccine has been paused because 6 people got blood clots out of 1 million or so.
Out of about 7 million.
Out of 7 million. Okay, out of 7 people. That's not a lot of people.
So and one of them died.
Okay, and so got blood clots, and so the powers that be are getting together. We're going to have word Friday. Will we have some kind of determination whether or not we continue it or change or whatever? Dr. Fauci should be an easy layup for you. His answer is 13 seconds long.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain of that, Chuck. I think by Friday we'll know which way we're going on this. Hopefully we'll get back on track, but I don't think there's going to be anything that'll linger beyond that. I hope not. I don't think so.
How many qualifiers, wishy-washy words were in there? I think, wishing, hope. Hopefully, we'll see. I'm not sure.
I'm fairly certain. I think, hopefully, I don't think, I hope not. I don't think so.
Well, frig's sake. I don't know, hope. We don't need, if we need somebody to hope, we can get somebody to do that. You're the guy in the lab coat.
Yeah.
Do you know anything? What things do you know?
I'm fairly certain. I think, hopefully, I don't think, I hope not. I don't think so.
Well, thanks for coming. Thank God for you. Is there somebody who can say, is there somebody more resolute around who we can talk to?
I'm fairly certain. I think, hopefully, I don't think, I hope not. I don't think so.
This guy is useless. He is a fool. He is a useless fool. Give me Trump's original doctor with the long hair over him any day of the week. So that is what's happening in the Beltway, where all the decisions are made by really, really smart people.
Did you, by chance, grab any of Dr. Fauci's other big interview this weekend?
Oh, darn. No. Are there swears in it?
Yes.
Oh. No. Are there so the swears bleeped out anywhere?
I don't know.
If you can find it, I don't see why. I don't think it was on there. Was it on there?
I don't know if I sent it to you, but we talked about it.
It was Fauci with Marshawn Lynch. So I can play it and just bleep up the swears afterwards if you want.
Yeah, you can.
So Fauci does this Cardi B Biden type interview with Marshawn Lynch where Fauci is clueless as to what this guy is saying to him. I'll grab it, Alice. Or you want to send it to me?
I'll send it to you.
Or is it there?
Hang on. I'll send it to you.
In Twitter? And they... Darn, I knew I was forgetting something.
Hang on. Give me... Phil, please.
Okay. Phil? When I said Phil in Boston Hill Radio, Hillary Chavot said Punxsutawney? Okay. In the Beltway, in other areas, the United States Congress is featuring members of its caucus, the Democrats, who are in the streets in Brooklyn Center right now in Minnesota, who are calling for more unrest in the streets. This is Maxine Waters. She's up there with all of the protests in Brooklyn Center over the Dante Wright killing. Listen to her.
Yes, I would like to see the bill in Congress pass on police reform, but I know that the right wing, the racists, are opposed to it.
The racists are opposed to it. The bill in Congress. Great.
And I don't know what's going to happen to it, but I know this: we've got to stay in the street, and we've got to demand justice.
Excellent.
We're looking for a guilty verdict. We're looking for a guilty verdict.
In the George Floyd case, and if we don't get one,
And we're looking to see if all of the talk that took place and has been taking place after they saw what happened to George Floyd, if nothing does not happen, then we know that we've got to not only stay in the street, but we've got to fight for justice. But I am very hopeful, and I hope that we're going to get a verdict that will say guilty, guilty, guilty. And if we don't,
regardless of what the jury finds out, regardless of the facts of the case, it better say guilty, 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 or a United States congressperson is demanding that there be action in the streets. Protest, violence, looting. She's demanding this. This will be countrywide. This is, you better find him guilty or else we're going to raise hell. She is throwing an accelerant on this fire. And if something happens this week, it could be tomorrow. No, probably not tomorrow.
Are they deliberating yet?
No. Well, tomorrow is the final arguments.
Oh, okay.
And then, I mean, I guess they go right in from there. I mean, I assume they whack that out in the morning, and then who knows what happens.
Well, the judge has to instruct them.
And not just manslaughter, right? I mean.
Oh no, not manslaughter. No. This is guilty for murder. I don't know whether it's in the first degree, but as far as I'm concerned, it's first degree murder.
What should protesters do?
Well, we got to stay on the street, and we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
What do you think about this curfew tonight?
Don't worry about it.
Can you get more confrontational than setting buildings on fire and sending National Guardsmen to the hospital? I mean, like, is that...
We'll see. We'll see.
Do we want to be more confrontational than that?
We'll see. That's in Minnesota.
So
in Boston, people are taking to the streets as well.
Fire, fire, Tetra, fire.
That's in a historically, or not historically, but recently more black part of town that's been gentrified. A part of town, as a matter of fact, where two young ladies who have been on this podcast live in Boston, as a matter of fact. I got to talk to your sister about that and call her the great gentrifier. Both of them are gentrifiers. Another peppy saying, we remember these sayings from last year, are in the streets of Boston.
Justice, no peace. Take it to the streets of police, no justice, no peace. Take it to the streets of police, no justice, no peace.
Take it to the streets and bleep the police. Reminds me of Anthony Cletus of the Red Hot
Speaking
Chili
of,
Peppers. Take it to the Go ahead.
Speaking of bleep the police, Lori Lightfoot's in trouble for, there was supposed to be a cheating scandal with her and her wife, but that hasn't seemed to really materialize so far. But there's another scandal that's making
information
that people are mad about, that she supports the police too much. So among other things, this story is a little bit old, but it's getting more attention because of how she's handling the protests in Chicago. This kid was shot there that we talked about before, the 13-year-old kid, Adam Toledo. So they're having protests, and they're once again scrutinizing the police budgets. And this is coming up again where they spent a bunch of their COVID relief money on police payroll because a lot of the COVID expenses that the city has have to do with police. They have to work details at vaccination clinics and testing sites, and they have to do wellness checks on people, and there's like a bunch of expenses that come with the police. So, as the defund the police movement comes under more scrutiny again, people are complaining that she gave millions of dollars of COVID money to the police, even though obviously, we need the police to help with the COVID response. But, we'll see what happens. Maybe her Me Too scandal will come to fruition, but it's not clear so
Alice,
far.
what am I doing with this Marshawn Lynch thing? It's queued up to 2626. Is that where I should start it?
No, I don't know why it's cute. Oh, just because I had been watching it.
Okay.
But no, just put it at the beginning and watch just the beginning of it. We obviously don't have to watch the whole thing.
This is Marshawn Lynch of the Seattle Seahawks, right? Is he still playing for them? Or with Bears now, I guess. I think he's with, I don't know where he is. He's a pro football player. He's a big dude.
All right. Well, what's happening, man? You got Marshawn Lynch here, man. Better known as the boy, the kid, beast.
Okay, Fauci is the split screen. Fauci is looking directly at the camera, trying to decipher what Marshawn is saying exactly. But there's a generational difference between these fellas.
Oh, man. It's a pleasure to to meet the Dr. Fauci himself. You understand me? What's happening, big dog?
Thank you. It's good to be with you, Marshawn.
No problem. Did you understand anything I just said?
Yeah, I got it. I'm good at that.
All good. It sounds like we on path.
Yep, we're on a path.
Yeah, what's going on, boss man?
Well, we're trying to get as many people vaccinated against this COVID-19 because this has been a really horrible year for the entire country. We've had over 550,000 people die, disproportionately more African American and Hispanics than whites. They get more severe disease, they get more hospitalizations and more deaths. So what we want to do is to see if we can convince as many people as possible when the vaccine becomes available to them to get vaccinated. Right. And that's the reason why we thought maybe you and I having a conversation about that and chiming in, and since you're such an admired person by everybody, but particularly African Americans, because of your extraordinary career in football, that you might want to encourage them with me to make sure that people, although they may be understandably a little reluctant for a variety of reasons, to make sure they wind up getting vaccinated. So what do you think about that?
So what I do believe, big dog, is, that's unfortunate. And, to hear you put those numbers out there, it make my antennas perk up. But I would say more so when it comes to vaccinations or, government, I don't want to say experiments.
Just say experiments,
When it comes to the government giving back to communities of people that look like me, we don't seem to be on the well-received end of those situations. So when you say it might be a little reluctant, for African Americans to go and get those vaccinations, I believe it's more of an education type situation, and not so much of the vaccination. But anytime we've been told that we was going to be in position to have something, gave to us or put in our community to help us, it seemed to turn out, very bad for us.
Here.
I think that he is right on point, frankly.
Damn right. Damn right. Absolutely. Here, Marshawn Lynch, damn straight. Cheers to that.
And then, it gets to the point where it's almost like it's a gamble, where if I go and take this vaccination, there's a chance that, you don't mind if I be myself, right? No. Oh, okay, well then, it's a, it's a chance that I can, come out of this situation more fucked up than I went into it, rather than, by taking my chances and rolling the dice, by not getting it and going through, the illness, the sickness, and, coming out, whether because at this point in time, I have more information of what can happen to me if I catch this, rather than I haven't seen enough of our people who took the vaccination to see whether they come out better or worse. So I think it's more of the educational component.
All right, so let's go there. Let's go there. That's a good point.
Calm down, Fauci.
So first thing is that you have to understand that I do, and certainly many of my colleagues, totally respect the reluctance that African Americans have about things like this, because you're absolutely right. The history of how the federal government, going back decades, particularly in the area of medical issues, how they've treated African Americans has not been something.
But I would never lie to you. I'm Anthony Fauci. I would never lie about the masks or herd immunity. I would never equivocate on anything just to manipulate masses of people. not me. I'm not like the others.
I
like
also
Howie
definitely
Coward
wasn't there for decades as part of the federal government misleading black people. That's definitely not something I would have been involved in since I'm brand new to being involved. Now that I'm here in the federal government, that's
I
definitely
absolutely wasn't there in the 80s when crack addiction was considered criminal, not a health care issue.
Yeah, no, that was not me. That was a different Fauci. And I also think it's funny how he's like, I totally respect your reluctance. Is that what he said to like the conservative Trump voters who are reluctant? Does he respect their reluctance, or is it only black people's reluctance that he respects?
I have no problem with Marshawn Lynch. I think that Marshawn Lynch, although he didn't go to all the great schools that Fauci went to, I assume, and can't enunciate like Fauci can, and can't or doesn't speak like Fauci, either do I. That Marshawn Lynch is just as smart as Anthony Fauci, and maybe smarter. And he has actually
really good questions the whole interview. You should go watch it. He's pretty good.
I will. He has the sense that he's being lied to by somebody, and his sense is right on. That is great. So let's move on from that.
Yeah. There's a whole
I'll
interview
add the
there.
link in the show notes.
It's all like that.
I'm
it's
thrilled about
pretty
that.
good. I like Marshawn Lynch.
Okay. So the last piece of audio I have anyway, but I know we've got some other stuff, is Bill Maher, and I don't want to. We're already running a little bit over here, but we'll just start. This is probably Bill Maher's best monologue, I think, from soup to nuts, and the writing in this is just brilliant. So we'll just play a chunk of this.
New rule: don't spin me when it comes to my health. Over the past year, the COVID pandemic has prompted the medical establishment, the media, and the government to take a scared straight approach to getting the public to comply with their recommendations. Well, I'm from a different school. Give it to me straight, Doc. Because in the long run, that always works better than you can't handle the truth. Now, I get it. Doctors tell people lies because they don't trust you to finish the antibiotics after your dick starts feeling better.
Oh, dang. You gotta clean that.
And media? Well, I think we all know if it bleeds, it leads. The more they can get you to stay inside and watch their panic porn, the higher the ratings. Researchers at Dartmouth built a database recently monitoring the COVID coverage of the major news outlets across the world and found that while other countries mix the good news in with the bad, the U.S. national media reported almost 90% bad news. Even as things were getting better, the reporting remained negative. And politicians, they lie because it's their nature to cover their ass so they don't get blamed if things goes badly, and also to keep in practice. But when all of our sources for medical information have an agenda to spin us, yeah, you wind up with a badly misinformed population, including on the left. Liberals often mock the Republican misinformation bubble, which of course is very real. Ask anyone who works at Hillary's Pizza Parlor. And we do know conservatives have some loopy ideas about COVID, like the third of Republicans who believe it couldn't be spread by someone showing no symptoms. But what about liberals? You know, the high information, by the science people? In a recent Gallup survey, Democrats did much worse than Republicans in getting the right answer to the fundamental question, what are the chances that someone who gets COVID will need to be hospitalized? The answer is between 1% and 5%. 41% of Democrats thought it was over 50%. Another 28% put the chances at 20 to 49. So almost 70% of Democrats are wildly off on this key question and also have a greatly exaggerated view of the danger of COVID-2 and the mortality rate among children. All of which explains why today the states with the highest share of schools that are still closed are all blue states. So if the right-wing media bubble has...
This is remarkable from Bill Maher. I mean, Hannity can't do this as good as Bill Maher is doing this. Yeah. And this is like blasting Democratic governors.
...to own things like climate change denial, shouldn't liberal media have to answer for How did your audience wind up believing such a bunch of crap about COVID? A new report in The Atlantic says the media won't stop putting pictures of the beach on stories about COVID, even though it's looking increasingly like the beach is the best place to avoid it. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, and vitamin D is the key to a robust immune system. Texas lifted its COVID restrictions recently, and their infection rates went down, in part because of people getting outside to let the sun and wind do their thing. But to many liberals, that can't be right, because Texas and beach-loving Florida have Republican governors. But life is complicated. I've read that the governor of Florida reads. I know we like to think of Florida as only middle school teachers on bath salts having sex with their students in front of an alligator. But apparently the governor is also a voracious consumer of the scientific literature, and maybe that's why he protected his most vulnerable population, the elderly, way better than did the governor of New York.
This is shots fired from Bill Maher. This audience is like laughing with him and clapping, but he is sounding like an apostate to people like those people.
Those are just facts. I know it's irresponsible of me to say them. Look, here's what I'm saying. I don't want politics mixed in with my medical decisions.
Hear, hear.
Yep.
And now that everything is politics, that's all we do. If their side says COVID is nothing, our side has to say it's everything. Trump said it would go away like a miracle, and we said it was World War Z. Trump said we should ingest household disinfectants, and we laughed, as we should, of course. And then it turned out 19% of America was literally drenching the fruit in Clorox. And now, of course, we find out that all that paranoia about surfaces was bullshit anyway, even though we spent hours and hours wiping our knobs with Lysol. And if you've ever wiped your knob with Lysol.
Alice.
Stop.
I think you know. Now go home and wash the mail. If you lie to people, even for a very good cause, you lose their trust. I think a lot of people... Thank you. I think a lot of people died because of Trump's incompetence. And I think a lot of people died because talking about obesity had become a third rail in America. I know you've heard me pound this fried drumstick before. But since I last mentioned it, a stunning statistic was reported. 78% of those hospitalized, ventilated, or dead from COVID have been overweight. It is the key piece of the puzzle, by far the most pertinent factor, but you dare not speak its name.
So I found that to be shocking as well, because I am obviously a fat who goes to the store. I have not gone anywhere that I didn't used to go because of COVID. I'm out mixing it up, etc. I knew that the fats were taking a hit. I didn't know they were wiping us out.
Yeah.
So, but...
I mean, I think some of that, I'd like to know what percent, some of that is driven by age, too, because older people tend to be more sedentary and, on average, are more overweight than 20-year-olds.
For him to say this, for him to say this, that we were being too politically correct by not wanting to hurt feelings, he is firing a torpedo at intersectionality.
Right.
This guy cannot say this stuff and be okay.
Imagine how many lives could have been saved if there had been some national campaign a la Michelle Obama's Let's Move program with the urgency of the pandemic behind it. If the media and the doctors had made a point to keep saying, but there's something you can do, but we'll never know because they never did. Because the last thing you want to do is say something insensitive. We would literally rather die.
Right.
Instead, we were told to lock down. Unfortunately, the killer was already in the house, and her name is Little Debbie.
It's true. I mean, we did tell people to go inside where they're far more likely to get COVID and not go outside and get exercise.
Right.
And I think that was a factor.
But
in
imagine
why we were hit so
imagine
hard.
the leadership that would have been if they said, listen, everybody, now's the time. Do virtual classes, whatever. Now's the time to get in shape.
Mm-hmm.
Get up there, get in shape. Rather than, but that would have been a distraction, of course, from the Civil War.
Right.
It would have to be an all-in thing. Everybody, let's get in shape. Doesn't matter where you are. You know, I mean, it could have been a positive. That would be utilizing a crisis to not only ameliorate the crisis,
Mm-hmm.
but to have a nice green shoot of progress in a whole new way.
Right.
I mean, that would have been great had we not sucked too much. I'm sorry I played that whole thing, but it was great. It's not a part that you can't play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was fantastic. One more news item that I found interesting this weekend is that we all remember Kyle Rittenhouse, correct?
Yes.
The teenager who shot 3 people in Kenosha.
Yes.
Last year.
What am I supposed to hear? Oh, that's right. Yes.
So he had a legal defense fund. And
Well, first thing that we're hearing about Kyle, before you get to that,
Okay.
is from last week that Kyle Rittenhouse literally was allowed to go around and shoot people and was not shot by the cops.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Dante Wright had to be shot by the cops,
Mm-hmm.
and there's the other kid in Chicago as well.
Yeah.
And that is true, but Kyle Rittenhouse also cooperated with
Right.
cops. So that's
Right.
the whole thing, you know. It's a very important little space of time
Mm-hmm.
here where you try to avoid getting in a street fight with the police. That's or you try to avoid.
He wasn't shooting at the cops.
Right. The cops had
Among other things.
no fear that he was going to shoot at the cops.
Right. So he, in any case, he has a legal defense fund because he does have like murder charges that he's trying to defend himself from now. And a charity group, a Christian charity group that was fundraising for his legal defense was had a data breach, which I believe is a way of saying they were hacked that somehow puts it on them, on the charity group. They had a data breach.
Right.
And it exposed all the donors that donated to Kyle Rittenhouse's legal defense fund.
Ooh.
And so the left obviously views this as a great opportunity to go find all those people and shame them and try and get them fired from their jobs. Unsurprisingly, there were a lot of police officers on the list that they want every single one of them fired from their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And other people, there was, in particular, a Utah paramedic was on the list, and his local news station, ABC4 Utah, was out there knocking on his door, making a local news story of it. This is just a guy who's a paramedic.
Incredible.
They're out there making him a news story because hacked data revealed that he donated to someone's legal defense fund.
Great. You're hunting people down.
And putting their faces on TV as white supremacists because they donated to a legal defense fund.
You're not on the list, are you?
No, I'm not. Yeah, so an ABC4 Utah is reporting this like it's a thing. A Utah paramedic donated to the defense fund of Kyle Rittenhouse. It was first reported in The Guardian this morning. Rittenhouse is accused of killing 2 protesters in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I tried to get the paramedic's side of things. See the story tonight at 10 p.m. on ABC4 Utah. Imagine, we're getting his side of the story. There's no reason to get his side of the story. I don't go...
Yes, you're allowed to have beliefs that are yours.
Yeah, there's no side of the story.
I even saw this story about this female police officer who was arrested because she got in a loud either shouting match or had a loud debate with a black kid, a friend of her son's, about Black Lives Matter, and she's arrested for it because she's a cop and thrown in front of a judge. It's just This is craziness. It's great. Great. Anybody throw all of the senators.
What's your side of the story?
Yeah.
What's your excuse?
What are your beliefs? Some of these some of these beliefs are not acceptable. No. What are you believe there was election fraud? Well, then your livelihood has to be destroyed. You believe this, that. You believe, 1 week ago, Alice, you're going around believing the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is dangerous. You have to be destroyed. Next day, you believe it's safe. Now you have to be destroyed.
Oh, and everything else. Masks. You believe in wearing masks, then you're terrible and you're selfish and you're hurting doctors and nurses who actually need it. You don't need that mask. And then the next week, you're terrible and selfish. I mean, it's really, it's past the point of absurdity, the stuff that we are asked to constantly buy into.
Destroying lives. And you got these people, the bigger name people, thankfully, are in these battles. Like Jesse Singleton cannot detangle himself.
I know. It's all his whole existence now is in arguing with people who are just telling absolutely blatant lies about him constantly.
Yes, that's the Blocked and Reported podcast that we suggest that you try. It's absolutely and totally nuts. Once again, my Substack is out today. If you're interested in that, you can take a look, and I'd like you to subscribe if you don't mind, but you don't have to. And if you do, you don't have to pay. And what else do we have, Alice? We have a new website, burnbarrelpodcast.com, which shows you can get to all of our shows from there and how to listen to us. I don't even know if people do photo galleries anymore, but I guess there's a Twitter feed there. And what else do we have? Anything we need to tell the world? You were vaccinated today? Oh, yeah. I'm filling in this week on WTIC. Probably be with Jerry Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is WTIC. I will try to have some guests there, and maybe we can work something out as well. Great to be back. Love talking to everybody. Thank you so much for all of the feedback that we're getting in the DMs, and I try to get back to everybody on Twitter and Facebook and this. Sometimes I miss it, and I feel like a heel. If you want to email us at the burnbarrelpodcast@gmail.com. That's the place to do it. My other email is, I'm not at the newspaper anymore, so don't email there. Nothing's going over there. You can get me at winchester@gmail.com, WINNCHESTER. But probably the Burn Barrel Podcast is the best way because Alice Shattuck will look at that, and she's more organized than I am. Tomorrow's trash day, Alice. Remind me. I got to I have to grab the coffee maker from the yard.
Our coffee maker broke, and our kids took the broken coffee maker out of the trash and took it to their little spot in the woods.
That he calls his relaxing spot because he's 6 and he's got a lot on his shoulders. But that's fine. No complaints. All is well. Things are looking up. Spring is on the way, or here, or something. The sun is coming, and thanks again, everybody.
Tom already mentioned our email. That's burnbarrelpodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out burnbarrelpodcast.com. We're on Twitter at burnbarrelpod and on Gab and Parler at burnbarrelpodcast, plus on facebook.com/burnbarrelpodcast. Am I forgetting anything else? Oh, we're on YouTube.
Broadway!
Yes, we can, Jill. We can.
Dr. Alice.
You can find us.
She's a medical doctor.
On YouTube as well.
She's a hell of a doctor. She's an amazing doctor.